Today, let us see the caste system in India and its background. India is the land of ancient civilization, is located in the northern hemisphere and forms part of the southern peninsula of Asia. The 3.2 million square kilometers, about twice the area of Alaska, the seventh largest consisting of 1.38 billion people, second most populous and speaking 30 separate groups of languages. While the Constitution has recognized 22 official languages, the Government of India further gives the distinction of classical languages to Kannada, Malayalam, Odia, Sanskrit, Tamil and Telugu. The status of classical languages is given to the languages that have a rich heritage and independent nature. Now that we have established that India is a widely diverse country, let us move on to the topic at hand. Although there are some 3,000 castes in India and more than 5,000 published works on this topic, it is suffices to know the quintessence of the system that has been prevailing in this subcontinent. The peculiar feature of Indian society, the division of people by caste, the etymology of which we will take a look at shortly, may appear strange to other countries. The structure of the Indian Hindu society is different from that of the other societies, which may instead go by a socio-economic class division. This integration of the caste units into an organic community in India shows stern belief of people in customary laws of the land. Any customs, conventions and laws within a community are passed on to them by their ancestors. But these original customs, beliefs, conventional laws get modified slightly or wholly by many events like invasions, inventions, migration, immigrations and so on. So, what is caste then? Simply put, caste is a division of society into various groups based on three commonalities: occupation, culture and rituals, and incorporating it with their social life as a status. Now, let us look at the origin. The earliest human inhabitants of the Indian peninsula were Negritos. To give a brief description of their appearance, they are short, around 4 to 5 feet in height, with dark skin and peppercorn hair. Such tribes still survive in forests and hilly areas of southern India, for example, Khadas of Cochin. They also live in Andaman Islands, Philippines, Malaysia, south of Ganges river in Bihar and in the Naga villages on the northeast frontier between Assam and Burma. The Australoid race, which is indirectly referred to as pre-Dravidian or Proto-Australoid, has contributed much to India's population. The Australoid race has been connected to the brown race of Southeast Europe. This race might have developed from a subhuman ancestry in Southeast Asia. J. H. Hulton 1946 says this type is allied to the aborigines of Australia and to primitive tribes spread over the Indian archipelago and is very widely spread all over India, particularly among the lower castes and the humbler classes of the society. It is found in the least adulterated form in some of the primitives of the southern India hill and forest tribes, but generally appears mixed with other elements in all grades of society, though it is much less clear among the higher classes than the lower. It is characterized by very wavy, even curly hair, a broad nose and rather coarse features generally, and by darkish skin. There can be little doubt but that the ancestors of people of this type formed the bulk of the population of the Indian peninsula at some early date and probably before anyone else except perhaps the Negritos had entered it. Around the 3rd millennium BC, due to racial disturbances in the southern Russian steppe and Iran, many people migrated to India from the northwest and spread over the Indian subcontinent. The places of migration include southern India and western India. There is historical evidence to show the invasion of the Aryans and the Iranians into India around 1500 BC, and those formed the two groups, the Indo-Aryans and ethno-linguistic group that spoke Indo-Aryan languages, and the Indo-Aryans split off sometime between 2000 BCE and 1600 BCE from the Indo-Iranians. It is believed that these immigrants introduced first the outer band of Indo-Aryan languages in what is today North India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and the Maldives. The other important thing they brought with them was a system or patrilineal form of succession, that is relating to descent through the male line. All this together forms part of the Aryan invasion theory about Vedic literature and its origin. They were nature worshippers and they used hymns of worship found in Rig Veda. The concept of caste is generally traced to the Purusha Sukta verse of the Rig Veda. The Aryan languages could win over the languages of northern India, but only slight changes could happen in the languages of southern India. The Indo-European migration out of the Eurasian steppes started approximately in 2000 BCE. They used Indo-European languages. They started settling down in Punjab and migrated further to the east and south. The migration to the south was through central India. Among the 30 separate groups of languages spoken in India, some of them pertain to Austric. It is believed that migration of Austric languages might have been from Central Asia through two routes, that is the west round of Himalayas and eastward of Himalayas. It is found that languages of Dravidian family are spoken widely in India. The migration of these languages into India might be from the direction through the Mesopotamia, as there are similarities found between the culture of South India and the older civilization of Mesopotamia. After the invasion of Indo-Europeans, many invasions took place. Persians followed Indo-Europeans and then the Portuguese and the Mughals. Now, why is the discussion of migration and invasion important to our topic? As Hutton puts it impeccably, it is from such diverse elements that the people of India are derived, and although the development of the caste system and its stabilization have crystallized the people of India into a large number of fairly watertight communities, the barriers between them were less rigid while the system was in the early development than they are now, and even now they are not all immutable. Hence, as a social animal, humans have always been moving in groups. Initially as gatherers, then herding, and later settled in a place where they had access to rivers, water, food and shelter, and started the domestication of animals, farming and agriculture. When they settled, they felt it essential to frame norms, rules, codes, laws, beliefs and customs followed by all the groups to provide stability, protection and predictability in the community, so that the least amount of anarchy prevails. They formed a society which may be defined as a group of humans broadly distinguished from other groups by mutual interest, participation in characteristics, relationships and culture, and can start its own institutions. They framed caste as a socially distinct institution where occupation in the beginning, customs, culture, rituals and relationships were common. So, now let us refine our definition further of the word caste. A caste is a collection of families bearing a common name with a common ancestor or inherited profession, forming a single homogeneous community. Castes are units whose members follow a common occupation, culture, rituals and social life, whose members are governed by the same authorities body. The origin of caste system in India was initially racial. It is perhaps when a predominantly white race, the Aryans, coming from the northwest, inhabited India around 5000 years ago, the caste system first laid its roots in India. The Indian caste system, or as it would be described at the time, Varna Dharma, can be found in the Hindu scriptures as well. The Vedas looked at Varna as a system of occupational divisions. According to scriptures, Indian society could be broken down into several distinct groups known as Varnas. The Brahmins were the scholars, teachers and priests, while the Kshatriyas were the rulers, warriors and landlords. The Vaishyas were merchants and farmers, agriculturists, while the Shudras were manual laborers. Beyond these four basic Varnas are the Avarnas, who not only conform to the system like outsiders and foreigners. Now note that these Varnas are not necessarily the castes we know today. They are a broader social division. Within each Varna, there are several jatis, that is regional endogamous groups. It is these jatis that the British later called castes and subcastes. Etymology of the caste. The origin of the use of the word caste is from the Spanish and Portuguese. The word caste is derived from the Latin word castus, that means pure. The Spanish word caste was used to denote the mixed breed of Europeans, Negroes, and the American Indians. The word has also its origin from the Portuguese word caste, which means breed, race, of kind. The Indian sense of this word was first used by Portuguese from 1563. The Portuguese traders who landed in Goa noticed the division in Hindu society and named it as caste. The current spelling the word caste is after the French word caste. Charles Darwin used this in the evolutionary theories to denote the various regional classes or jatis. Definition of caste by scholars. Let us see some definitions of caste by some scholars. According to E.A.H. Blunt, a caste is an endogamous group of collection of endogamous groups bearing a common name, membership of which is hereditary, imposing on its members certain restrictions in the matter of social intercourse, either following a common traditional occupation or claiming a common origin, and generally as forming a similar homogeneous community. As per Sir H. Richloy, a caste may be defined as a collection of families or groups of families bearing a common name, which usually denotes or is associated with specific occupation, claiming common descent from a mythical ancestor, human or divine, professing to follow the same professional calling and component to give an opinion as forming a single homogeneous community. According to C.H. Cooley, when a class is somewhat hereditary, we may call it caste. Nesfield says, caste is a class of the community which disowns any connection with any other class and can neither intermarry nor eat, drink with any but persons of their own community. As per S.V. Ketker, a caste is a social group having two characteristics. One, membership is confined to those who are born of members and includes all persons so born. 2, the members are forbidden by an inexorable social law to marry outside the group. Each one of such groups has a special name by which it is called. Several of such small aggregates are grouped together under a common name. While these larger groups are but subdivisions of groups still large which have independent names. Thus, we see that there are several stages of groups at any stage. The word caste and subcaste are not absolute, but comparative in significance. The larger group will be called a caste, while the smaller group will be called a subcaste. A group is a caste or a subcaste in comparison with the smaller or larger. When we talk of Maratha Brahmins and Konkan Brahmins, the first one would be called a caste, while the later would be called a subcaste. But the general way, both might be called castes. Maratha Brahmins in their turn would be called the subcaste or the southern or Dravidian Brahmins. These divisions and subdivisions are introduced on different principles. In this way, 200 million Hindus are so much divided and subdivided that there are castes who cannot marry outside 15 families. On the other hand, there are some castes in which the process of division and subdivisions has not been carried to its logical extent, which can boast of 5 million. These 3000 castes with their subcastes put together make Hindu society. There is no intermarriage and truly little social intercourse in this proper sense. The only uniting between these sharply differentiated bodies is a certain number of common traditions and common languages for a number of them, and for all the common region which consists is being disciples of the Brahmins. As per Sir E. A. Gate, caste may be defined as an endogamous group or collection of such groups bearing a common name, having the same traditional occupation, claiming descent from the same source, and commonly regarded as forming a single homogeneous community. N.K. Dutt defines members of the caste cannot marry outside it. There are similar but less rigid restrictions on eating and drinking with a member of another caste. There are fixed occupations for many castes, the best recognized position being that of the Brahmins at the top. Birth determinant, a men's caste for life unless to be expelled for violation of its rules. Otherwise, transitions from one caste to another is not possible. The entire system turns on the prestige of the Brahmin. M17 says we must conceive of a group united, closed, and at least in theory hereditary provided with a measure of organization which is traditional and independent, with the headman and with the council, a group that means when need be in more or less full assembly that is often combined in the keeping of certain festivals, that is bound together by a common occupation and shares common customs in regard particularly to marriage, to the consumption of food and drink, and to various castes and pollutions. Finally, a group which has the power to maintain its authority by means of a jurisdiction which through rather attended incapable of making the authority of the community effectively felt by the imposition of various penalties, the most important being permanent or temporary expulsion from the group, such an epitome as it seems to us in a caste. As per J. H. Hutton, a caste system is one whereby a society is divided into a number of self-contained and completely segregated units, the natural relation between which are virtually determined in a graded scale. We have seen the definitions given by many scholars. Thus, the caste system was created at an ancient time in the early Hindu society with a view to the division on the basis of occupation that would be hereditary in nature. And while its origin, caste did not dictate any social hierarchy. Over time, it became an institution of social hierarchy among many other things. Now, presenting caste in the current society, birth determines the caste of a person. Conversion from one caste to another is not permitted. There is close stratification in the caste system, meaning a person cannot rise above his caste. A social distance is maintained between one caste and another caste. The caste system does not permit any subjective consciousness in its members. The laws of the caste system are rigid. As one can already see, the system for the current society is vastly outdated and needs reformation. What was once created to establish societal harmony and peace is now destroying those very principles. The caste system is now undergoing a substantial change. Social reformers have been propagating against the evils of the caste system. Many reforms have been brought in by the government through legislation, but as it stands, we still have a long road ahead. Thank you.